If you're watching this right now, I need you to pause for just a moment and really think about how unlikely this is. Out of billions of videos flooding the internet right now, out of the endless scroll of distraction that consumes most people's entire existence, out of all the noise and chaos competing for your attention, every single second of every single day, you ended up here. And I want you to understand something crucial. That's not random. That's not the algorithm playing tricks. That's not coincidence. That's alignment. That's the universe responding to a frequency you've been broadcasting, whether you knew it or not. And it tells me something about you that you might not have fully admitted to yourself yet. You're searching, you're sensing something, you're starting to remember a truth that most people will spend their entire lives running from, a truth that most people will never even realize exists. You've felt it lately, haven't you? That quiet shift happening in the background of your life, like the hum of an engine changing pitch before anyone else notices. The conversations that used to fill your time now leave you empty. They don't satisfy you anymore. You sit there nodding, playing along, but inside there's this growing awareness that none of it means anything. The routines that used to feel normal, the daily patterns you never questioned, now seem utterly pointless. You go through the motions, but you're watching yourself do it, like you're observing your own life from somewhere else. The people around you haven't changed at all. They're exactly the same, but you have. Something fundamental has shifted inside you, and that difference between who you were and who you're becoming is getting harder and harder to ignore with each passing day. You can't quite explain it to anyone. How could you? But something in you refuses to go back to sleep. It's like you've tasted something real, and now everything else tastes like cardboard. You've seen behind the curtain, and you can't pretend you didn't. Most people never get here, and I mean that literally. They go their entire lives on autopilot, following a script someone else wrote before they were even born, working jobs that drain their soul just to afford a life they're too exhausted to actually live, living lives that aren't even theirs, making choices based on what they think they're supposed to want, rather than what actually lights them up inside, repeating the exact same cycles their parents did, the same patterns their grandparents did, until they're too tired and too numb to even question it anymore. They confuse surviving for living. They confuse comfort for peace. They confuse being busy for being fulfilled. They tell themselves they're happy because they don't know what else to do with the truth. But you notice the cracks. You saw the cage, and once you see it, once you really see the invisible prison that most people call normal life, you can't unsee it. That's what makes you different. That's what makes you rare. That's why you're here right now, listening to these words, feeling them resonate in a place most people don't even know they have. And let's be completely real about something. It doesn't feel glamorous, does it? This awakening you're going through isn't what the spiritual marketing promised you. It's not fireworks and fanfare. It's not Instagram quotes and breakthrough moments captured perfectly for social media. It's quiet. It's deeply unsettling. It's that bone-deep exhaustion you feel when you realize you can't keep living the same way anymore, but you don't yet know what the alternative looks like. It's the loneliness that sets in when the old life doesn't fit anymore, but the new one hasn't fully formed yet. You're in this strange liminal space, this in-between place where you're neither who you were nor who you're becoming. It's grieving who you used to be, mourning the version of yourself that kept everyone comfortable while not fully knowing who you're becoming. That's the part no one tells you about in the transformation videos. That's the part that doesn't make it into the highlight reel. And yet, and this is crucial to understand, that discomfort is the exact proof you're on the right path. Because here's the truth that changes everything once you really grasp it. Transformation always comes disguised as loss. Always. You lose friends who can't walk this path with you, not because they're bad people, but because they're on a different frequency now. You lose the version of yourself that kept people comfortable, the one who said yes when you meant no, the one who shrunk to make others feel bigger. You lose the illusion of certainty you used to cling to like a life raft, the comforting lie that if you just followed the rules, everything would work out. And it feels like everything is falling apart. It feels like your life is crumbling. But it's not falling apart. It's falling into place. The universe has to clear out the old before it can make room for the new. It has to demolish the outdated structure before it can build something that actually fits who you're becoming. Think about the last few months of your life. Really think about it. Haven't you noticed strange patterns emerging? A conversation with a stranger that left you thinking for days, replaying their words in your mind because something about them felt important. A random book that showed up at exactly the right moment with exactly the message you needed. A video, a phrase, a quote that hit you harder than it should have, that lodged itself in your consciousness and wouldn't let go. A feeling that something bigger is just around the corner, just beyond your current perception, even if you can't see it yet or explain it to anyone else. These aren't coincidences. These are signals. These are the whispers of a reality that's been waiting for you to catch up to it. Breadcrumbs left by your higher self, calling you home. Most people dismiss these moments. They rationalize them away, explain them with logic, file them under weird, but whatever, and move on. But rare ones pay attention. Rare ones collect these moments like sacred artifacts. You kept walking toward the questions everyone else was running from. You kept digging deeper when everyone else was satisfied with surface-level answers and comfortable explanations. You kept pushing forward even when it meant leaving behind everything you thought you knew about yourself, everything you built your identity on, everything that made you feel safe. And now you're here. Now you're in this moment. Now you're ready to hear what most people aren't ready to understand, what most people will actively resist because it threatens everything they've built their lives around. The world is full of people who think they're awake, but are actually sleepwalking through their entire existence. They have their eyes open. Sure, they're functional, they're productive, but they're not conscious. Not really. They follow routines that drain their soul because they've never stopped to ask if there's another way. They chase goals that aren't even theirs, dreams they absorbed from advertising and social conditioning and family expectations. They live lives meticulously designed by other people's opinions and expectations. And then they wonder why nothing feels authentic anymore. They wonder why there's this hollow feeling that no amount of achievement or acquisition can fill. You're not one of them anymore. You stopped playing that game. Maybe you didn't make a conscious decision to stop. Maybe it just happened naturally. Like outgrowing clothes. You realized that the rules everyone else was following so religiously weren't actually leading anywhere meaningful. They were leading to the same destination for everyone. A life that looks good from the outside, but feels empty on the inside. You discovered that the path everyone said was the only way forward, the path of conventional success and societal approval, was actually a dead end disguised as progress. It was a treadmill painted to look like a road. This awakening you're going through right now, this shift in your consciousness, it's not just personal growth, It's not another phase you'll move past, like you moved past your emo phase or your fitness phase. This is permanent transformation. This is your consciousness expanding beyond the limitations that used to define your entire reality. This is you remembering what you actually are. Underneath all the conditioning and programming and inherited beliefs, you've stopped trying to fix other people. You've finally understood that everyone is on their own journey, and you can't force someone to wake up before they're ready. You've stopped thinking you're responsible for everyone else's happiness. Stopped setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. You've stopped believing that you need to earn love through performance or sacrifice. Stopped trying to prove your worth by being useful. You've finally understood, maybe for the first time in your life, that the most loving thing you can do is become fully yourself. Not the version of yourself that makes others comfortable. Not the edited version that fits into their expectations. The real, raw, unfiltered truth of who you are. And this isn't selfishness. This is service. When you operate from this level of authentic presence, you give others permission to do the same. Your example becomes an invitation. When you refuse to compromise your truth to make others comfortable, when you stop apologizing for taking up space, you show them what integrity actually looks like. When you choose peace over drama, when you walk away from chaos that doesn't serve you, you demonstrate that another option exists. You become living proof that there's another way. You've discovered something that changes everything once it really lands. You've realized that you are not separate from life. You are not a victim of circumstances, tossed around by fate and luck and other people's choices. You are not at the mercy of external events, helplessly reacting to whatever the world throws at you. You are life expressing itself in human form. You are consciousness experiencing itself through your unique perspective. You are the universe looking at itself through your eyes. This recognition, when it moves from your head to your heart, transforms how you move through the world. Problems become puzzles to solve rather than disasters to survive. You stop catastrophizing and start strategizing. Challenges become opportunities for growth rather than evidence that something is fundamentally wrong with you or your life. You stop asking, "Why does this always happen to me?" and start asking, "What is this here to teach me?" Uncertainty becomes adventure rather than anxiety. Instead of needing to control every variable and know every outcome, you start to trust the process, trust the unfolding, trust that you're being guided, even when you can't see the whole map. You're starting to understand at a cellular level that everything that happens is happening for your evolution, not because you're being punished by some judgmental God in the sky, not because you're being tested to prove your worthiness, but because growth requires resistance. Strength develops through challenge. Wisdom emerges through experience. Peace deepens through contrast. The old version of you used to ask, "Why is this happening to me?" with that victim energy, that helpless frustration. The current version asks, "What is this here to teach me?" with that student energy, that curious openness. That shift in perspective, that slight rotation of the lens, changes absolutely everything. It transforms you from a victim to student, from someone life happens to into someone who happens to life, from powerless to empowered, from reactive to responsive, from unconscious to awake. You're no longer searching for yourself in other people's opinions, hoping to see your reflection in their approval. You've stopped checking external validation to determine your worth, stopped refreshing your social media to see if you're enough. You don't need anyone's permission to be who you are anymore. That desperate need for approval that used to drive so many of your decisions, that unconscious hunger that shaped your choices and compromised your truth, has simply evaporated. This isn't because you've become arrogant or disconnected or coldly independent. It's because you found something unshakable inside yourself. A knowing that doesn't require proof. A confidence that doesn't need constant reinforcement. A sense of self that remains intact regardless of who stays or leaves your life. Regardless of who understands or misunderstands you. You've become your own home. You've become your own validation. You've become your own answer. And here's where it gets challenging. In a way you might not have anticipated. The closer you get to your breakthrough, the closer you get to the other side of this transformation, the louder the resistance becomes. It's like the old identity knows it's dying and it's fighting for its survival with everything it has. Old fears resurface with a vengeance. Doubts you thought you dealt with come back stronger. The voice in your head, that inner critic, that internalized voice of every limitation ever placed on you, tells you you're crazy for wanting more. It tells you that you should just be grateful for what you have, that wanting more is greedy or ungrateful. It tells you that you're not built for the life you secretly dream about, that people like you don't get to have that you should stay in your lane and stop reaching for things that aren't meant for you. And if you believe that voice, if you let it convince you, you'll retreat, you'll pull back, you'll play it safe. That's why most people never make it through. That's why the world is full of people who almost transformed, but didn't. They got to this exact point, this threshold, and they believed the fear instead of the knowing. But rare ones, they hear the fear and keep moving anyway. They feel the doubt and take the step. They acknowledge the resistance without letting it dictate their choices. You've already felt the pull, that restless energy that says, I can't keep living like this. Something has to change. That's readiness. And here's what nobody tells you about readiness. Readiness doesn't feel like confidence. It doesn't feel like certainty. It doesn't feel like you've got it all figured out. Readiness feels like surrender. It feels like finally dropping the excuses and the explanations and the justifications and admitting that you're built for something more. It feels like standing at the edge of everything familiar and choosing to jump even though you can't see the ground. Even if you don't know exactly what that more is yet, even if you can't articulate it or defend it or explain it to anyone else. Rare ones don't wait for perfect timing because they understand that perfect timing doesn't exist. They create it. They act before they feel ready, understanding that readiness is built through action, not contemplation. They trust that clarity comes after movement, not before. You don't think your way into a new life. You act your way into it. And when you do this, when you choose courage over comfort, when you take that step before you feel ready, something shifts in the quantum field. Life starts meeting you halfway. Opportunities appear that you swear weren't there before. People cross your path who feel strangely aligned with exactly where you're going. Doors that used to be locked, opportunities that seemed impossible, start opening one after another in a cascade that feels almost magical. And for the first time in your life, you realize it was never about luck. It was about resonance. The moment you decided to stop shrinking, to stop playing small, to stop dimming your light, to keep others comfortable, life stopped shrinking with you. The moment you expanded your sense of what's possible, reality expanded to match it. You weren't waiting for permission from the universe. The universe was waiting for permission from you. But let me be completely clear about something, because I don't want to paint a fantasy picture here. Being rare doesn't make life easier. It makes life richer. It doesn't remove obstacles. It transforms how you see them. Problems stop being punishments and start being puzzles. Uncertainty stops being a threat and becomes an adventure. Pain stops being meaningless suffering and becomes the raw material of wisdom, the friction that polishes you into who you're meant to be. You start to realize that everything that's happened in your life, every heartbreak, every failure, every disappointment, every betrayal, every moment you thought would destroy you, was never wasted. Nothing was wasted. Every single piece of it was shaping you into someone who could handle what's coming next, someone who could hold the frequency of the life you're moving toward. And people around you, they'll notice this change, even if they can't name it. Some will be drawn to you in ways they can't explain. They'll sense the calm in your presence, the centeredness in your energy. They'll notice the clarity in your choices, the way you move through life with purpose instead of panic. They'll see the way you no longer react to every storm, the way drama seems to bounce off you instead of sticking to you. They'll feel something different about you, and they'll want to be near it, even if they don't understand it. Others, though, and this is important to prepare for, will resist it. Your growth will remind them of their stagnation. Hold up a mirror they don't want to look into. Your truth will make their masks feel heavy and uncomfortable. Your freedom will highlight their self-imposed cages. Some will drift away naturally, the friendship just fading as you realize you don't have anything to talk about anymore. Some will push back actively, trying to pull you back down, trying to convince you that you've changed in a bad way, that you're not yourself anymore. And they're right. You're not yourself anymore. You're becoming yourself. But you'll stop apologizing for your evolution. You'll stop shrinking yourself to fit into places and relationships you've outgrown. You'll stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you, because rare ones don't dim their light to keep others comfortable. They understand that playing small doesn't serve anyone. It doesn't help the people around you to pretend you're less than you are. It just keeps everyone stuck. And here's where the real magic happens, where everything clicks into place. When you live like this, when you operate from this frequency of authentic alignment, you stop chasing, you stop begging life to give you something different. You stop looking outside yourself for signs that you're enough, for permission to be happy, for validation that you matter. Instead, you embody it. You become the thing you were chasing. You become the sign. Your presence itself starts creating space for others to awaken. You don't have to preach or convince or explain. You just have to be. That's why being rare isn't selfish. It's service. It's the highest form of service. The more you live authentically, the more permission you give others to do the same. You become a walking invitation to freedom. Now here's something most people will never understand about this path. Being rare means living with a kind of solitude most people can't handle. Because while everyone else is clinging to the herd, desperately trying to fit in and belong and be normal, you've stepped outside of it, and standing alone feels absolutely terrifying at first. It feels like exile. It feels like you've been cast out, until you realize something profound. It's in that solitude that you actually meet yourself for the first time. It's in the silence, away from the noise and opinions and expectations of the world, that your true voice emerges. The voice that's been buried under layers of conditioning, the voice that's been drowned out by the voices of parents and teachers and society and religion and advertising. Rare ones know how to be alone without being lonely, because they understand they carry an entire universe within them. They've discovered that the most interesting conversation they can have is with themselves. They've learned that their own company is not something to escape, but something to cultivate. And with that solitude, with that willingness to sit with themselves in the silence, comes a clarity most people never experience. You start seeing through illusions that used to fool you completely. Success, as the world defines it, no longer dazzles you. You see it for what it is, often a gilded cage. Approval, as the world sells it, no longer tempts you. You understand that popularity and respect are not the same thing. You see the game for what it is. Endless people, chasing endless validation, running on a hamster wheel of achievement and acquisition, never realizing that what they're chasing can't be found outside themselves, never realizing that the finish line keeps moving, that enough never comes, that the hunger can't be fed with external things. Rare ones stopped chasing, not because they gave up, but because they woke up. They discovered that the only prize worth winning was already inside. They realized that everything they were seeking, peace, love, fulfillment, purpose, belonging, was never lost in the first place. It was buried, and the journey isn't about finding it out there. It's about excavating it in here. But don't mistake this clarity for detachment. Don't confuse it with not caring. Being rare doesn't mean you stop caring about the world. In fact, it means the opposite. You care so deeply that you refuse to settle for illusions and surface-level connections. You care so fiercely that you can't play along with lies and pretend everything is fine when it's not. You care enough to tell the truth, even when your voice shakes, even when people walk away, even when it costs you relationships and opportunities. Rare ones carry both compassion and courage. They have soft hearts and strong boundaries. They're deeply feeling and deeply discerning, and that combination is what makes them unshakable. And let's be completely honest about something, because I don't want to sugarcoat this journey. Sometimes you'll wonder if it's worth it. Sometimes, usually at 3 a.m, when the doubt is loudest, you'll wonder if being awake is a blessing or a burden, because it can feel heavy to see what others refuse to see, to know what others refuse to know, to carry a truth that most people aren't ready for. It can feel isolating to be the only one in the room who sees the emperor has no clothes. It can feel exhausting to maintain your integrity in a world that rewards compromise. But here's the secret that makes it all worth it. You were never meant to carry the whole world. You were never meant to wake everyone up. You were never meant to save or fix or enlighten humanity. You were only meant to carry your light. And when you shine it fully, when you stop hiding it and apologizing for it and dimming it, it creates ripples you can't even measure. People you'll never meet will be touched by the courage you showed just by being yourself. Lives you'll never know about will be changed because you refuse to play small. The revolution you start is quiet, but it's profound. It's not loud or dramatic or captured on video. It's a shift in frequency that spreads like a whisper through the collective consciousness. So if you're hearing this right now, if these words are landing in that deep place where you know truth, when you hear it, understand that this isn't just another video. This isn't content you'll consume and forget. This is a reminder, a confirmation, a recognition of what you've always known, but maybe never had words for. You are one of the rare ones, and rare ones, they don't just live differently. They don't just make different choices or have different values. They make life itself different. They bend the world toward truth, toward love, toward authenticity, toward something real. They create cracks in the matrix just by being who they are. They give others permission to question, to seek, to remember, to come home to themselves. And now it's your turn to live like the rare being you've always been, not the person you were conditioned to be, not the version that makes everyone comfortable, not the filtered, edited, acceptable version. The real you, the you that exists underneath all the layers, underneath all the programming, underneath all the fears and doubts and inherited limitations. That you has been waiting for this moment, that you has been calling you here, that you is ready to emerge fully, completely, unapologetically, because the world needs you awake. Not someday, not when you're ready, not when you figured it all out. Now, right now, the world needs your specific frequency, your unique gift, your authentic presence. The world needs you to stop hiding and start shining. The world needs rare ones like you to lead the way home.